Or it explodes.
Explosion in progress. If you hang up the Zoom, you will die. Oh no, Saw 14, the nerd edition. Alrighty. Oh, well, welcome to another episode of In the Eye of a Solar Exalted Story. Here we are in season 1, or act 1, What the Night Driver Fears. We begin tonight in session 3, Mysteries at Sea. Once the night driver and his dour countenance departed, the Solar Exalted resumed a more natural mien for each of them and shared themselves and some of their stories and realized some of their connections together and talked late into the night about who they were and how they got here and where they imagined they were going. They rested. The beginning of it wrapped in a song sung or perhaps emitted by their companion, who calls herself Lost and whose fuller moniker is Guardian of Things Lost and Forgotten. And it occurs to some of you that if she is lost, perhaps things shouldn't be found, because there was a love of creation deeper maybe than you're sure you've loved anything in her song. And sadness, of course, but a sadness that brings strength. And whether you rest easily or fitfully, or enjoy a deep dreamless sleep normally, or are plagued by nightmares, this one night rocking on the sea, you fell easily into slumber and were not bothered in any particular way by anything vexing during your sleep. The group arose late and had a few interactions with the crew, who seemed all to be waiting with bated breath for you to rise, as though perhaps a circus was going to form on deck, or something else that they couldn't possibly expect, but expected nonetheless. There were more conversations, and the group paired off in pieces, discussing ways that they imagined they could be better and how the others might help them with that, or how they might help with that. And they estimated their journey to be, or the captain estimated their journey with some luck to be a couple of weeks to arrive in the vicinity of the island of Rondon, which is in the southwestern sea, at the northern end of the Wave Crest archipelago. However, there were not one, not two, but a whole handful of Solar Exalted gathered together in one place. And so, even if they didn't know it, everyone else did. That's not how things were going to go. A quiet sail of 2 weeks. And soon enough, the clouds began to race in the sky, and the waves agitated the surface of the sea as though they had intense and important business for which they were very late in a distant country. And all the while, the wind slowed and slipped and died in the sails, such that the sailors could do nothing but trim them and hope for the weather to change. Of course, it turned out that it was possible that one of the circle might be able to change the weather, but there was a more, perhaps, proximate opportunity. And so they went to the captain's cabin and retrieved the beautiful conch packed in cotton wool that he had left them, stuffed with golden yellow beeswax. And following the night driver's last minute remembered instructions, they not only pulled the beeswax from the conch, which either freed the spirit that was trapped in there or summoned the spirit that was connected to it, or no one really knew how the device worked. But the spirit was there nonetheless, and in the lack of instruction, it began enjoying itself, which, well, probably wouldn't lead to an easy afternoon. But fortunately, the captain remembered the night driver's words, and he spoke into the conch shell the direction that he wanted the wind to blow. At least, that he wanted the wind filling the sails to blow. And so that it did. And other than frightening the crew, who hung, many of whom, more than usual, hung in the riggings where they had been pulling the sails as tight as they could to catch the most wind, were suddenly swung from their perches. But being seasoned sailors, and it being early in the day and there having been no celebration for them last night, they were all skillful and sober enough to save themselves. And so the afternoon went on quietly, with, again, the crew or the circle pairing off with each other or attending to their own interests. And as the ship gained her run on the sea, and the rhythm of the prow striking the waves became a dependable thing, and the swing of the sails became steady. That was the time that the Windthrift's first mate, called Rack, came and informed his captain, Vermilion Eventide, in a way that Vermilion Eventide would understand that this poor mortal servant of Vermilion, he and his men had done everything that men could do to ascertain whether what he reported to the captain was true or not. And what he reported to the captain was that one of the watch hands, one of the lower lookouts, so relatively, the captain would know personally, a young man, but also relatively green to both the sea and the Windthrift, who went by the name of Bergamot, had gone missing. He had been on night watch last night, high up in the riggings, while making sure that nothing went awry with the sails while the Exalted met on the foredeck, and had worked until the morning, when he was certainly seen by his fellow crewmates who descended in the change of shift. And he may have been seen hours later up till noon. His being a junior member of the crew, his hammock is in the far back of the men's shared quarters in the belly of the ship, kind of in among some of the goods packed into the hold. And and so he certainly hadn't been seen leaving. And crew members reported they think they may have seen him in his hammock, maybe as late as noon, but it's hard to say. And Captain Eventide, you read from his face that he and the men have since searched the ship top to bottom, and the man isn't passed out or fallen or anything else on the ship. He's not lying in a closed room. He didn't sneak into the captain's quarters and get drunk. Although actually that's the one place they didn't check was Captain was your quarters. So he may have actually gone into your quarters and gotten drunk and fallen asleep. But that would certainly be what had to have happened, because he should be up now and eating and getting ready for another evening shift as the afternoon wears out into evening. He tells you that he firmly does not believe that he went overboard at any point, certainly not in the acceleration lurch caused by the elemental, because he simply wasn't on deck then. And although the men were busy saving their own lives, they would have seen and heard a crewmate go over into the water. And so with that, Captain, is there anything you do? Do you call the other chosen together, or do you do something on your own before doing so?
I think the first thing I do is try to gather the circle. So I think I send a crewmate to go inform my guests on the ship. What time is it right now?
It's coming up on about 5 o'clock
PM.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's I assume that we haven't eaten dinner yet. But I think I'd like to talk to them before we actually gather for dinner, because I want to talk to them alone.
Okay. The climb is warm, and you're nearly abreast of the Blessed Isle in terms of latitude, which means the days are warm, and it's late in the year, and so it's warm in general. Seisha's power is strong. Okay, so crew members chosen. Crew members come and tell you that the captain has some important business that he would like to speak with you about, and if you could meet him in his cabin.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest place for us to meet. Yeah, I think so.
There will be a polite knock on the cabin door from what will be revealed to be Wellspring, saying,
And
Captain, you
we
asked
were
for
last
me?
together.
You asked
Remember?
for us?
So both of you. Oh, and before we open do this scene, just a quick question for you, Paul. The air, what appear to be the air elemental, do I know if it's possible to communicate with them, or is that something that would be? I'm guessing that that's probably not a known thing.
It would be beyond you.
Okay,
you're certain.
Sure. All right.
The only form of communication you know is that you can speak the way that the wind should blow into the conch, and
Right.
it will.
Okay.
And you reflect that he didn't tell you, and you didn't ask how to put it back.
Oops. Yes, so I open the door and I greet Wellspring and Jude. How about Wandering Starfall? Does she show up, or?
Yes, she shows up. It takes the crew a little longer to find her because we left her rummaging around in very interesting material cargoes.
In the hold, right?
So it takes a little while to find her feet sticking up from behind a pile of boxes somewhere, but she hops up to join you as soon as she's found.
So I greet all three of you, and I open with Well, it's perhaps, and his hand kind of goes a little awkwardly through his hair, like a tick, and says, it's perhaps not, I don't know if it's good etiquette for a host to make a request of his guests so early. Um, but we have a bit of a matter, and I'm humbled to say that it's kind of beyond my understanding. And I determined that perhaps one of you, with all of your knowledge and wisdom, could perhaps help me. And he waits for a moment to see how you all respond.
And so before we get to the responses, as these people have filed into the, I mean, it's not a ballroom in a grand home, but it is the largest private space on the ship, and certainly the two previous owners appointed it. And so, what does the captain's room look like, Captain?
It's not ostentatious. And it's clear that if you look, carefully, it's very clean. And if you look carefully at the items that adorn the room, it's all of surprising, maybe even shockingly good quality. Like the bed has these kind of luxurious sheets, and there are silks, but it's not in an ostentatious sort of way. It's just the things that he has. He's clearly been very, very selective about. In the corner, one thing that is not fit that description is a rather beaten and worn, very old globe. And on it are all these sort of pins marking certain locations. And I think Wellspring, you probably notice probably very quickly that there are notes on the globe that remind you of the notes that were in the book that Vermilion showed you, that you had given him. And clearly there have been more notes added and more kind of X's and little things kind of put onto it.
I don't want to interrupt your flow, and
Huh?
creation is not a sphere.
Oh,
and-
that's right. It's not a
and the
globe.
citizens of creation are well aware of that.
Yes.
So what you would have instead is a map table with a map of creation under a fixative.
Yes, and actually that not only does that obviously make more sense, but also the notes make more sense rather than writing it on a globe. So yes, thank you for that. And also I think noteworthy on the map are like areas that have pins and like kind of these exclamation points and stuff like that, that even a casual observer might gather like, oh, I would love to go here. There's all these kind of like little kind of excited notations on it. There's the space has mostly been used conservatively, so there's a lot of floor space. And there's books and some captain's tools in there. But aside from all of the above, it's relatively simple.
Is the lighting in the room combustion based, or do you have some fire dims or glow globes from the south, or like wraith globes from the north to light it, or anything sort of fancy like that?
A glow globe sounds pleasant and sounds like the kind of thing Vermilion would enjoy. So perhaps I think one thing that would be noteworthy is that even though the overall decor of the room is Western, and Western by Western I mean in the sense of Western in creation, there are little items and that are from different areas of the world. Like the lighting, which I think might come from the south. And yeah, that's all I can think of at the moment.
I do think Wellspring is just listening, but looking around the room and smiling at the obvious way that it speaks of its resident. And he'll respond, please, we are here to work together and help each other. I see no reason that you should feel hesitant to ask us for our help. I'm happy to aid in any way that I can.
What sort of problem have you got?
Don't know about whether it's polite or not in the West to ask a guest, but I'm sure in all places it is okay to ask a friend.
Vermilion smiles at Jude and looks visibly relieved to hear that, as if you've answered some unspoken question. And then he nods gratefully to both Wellspring and Starfall and says, I mean, you all, I don't know all of you terribly well, but I had hoped, and I'm grateful. I know the answer might seem obvious at first, but I hope you will trust me when I tell you, when there's a missing crewmate, I don't think it was due to his own incompetence or random chance that he's gone missing. The crew member Bergamot hasn't been found, and all the crew members have been sailing for years, even the ones that we have recruited to replenish our ranks. And it wouldn't have been like him. And also the rest of the crew are rather perceptive. And if one of them fell overboard, it's almost certain that another one would have noticed. And yet we can't seem to find him anywhere on the ship. And sailing is one thing, but I can't make heads or tails of it.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what role did he serve in your crew? I did a bit of reading before embarking, and I'm vaguely aware that there are different positions for members of the crew.
He was a lookout in RopesMate. What does a RopesMate do exactly?
So he would be one of the primary people that would tend to the ropes that are used to dock the ship and to manage the sails. And so he would be the person that would be, during a shift, would be running the length of the rope, checking it, fixing it, maybe pulling new rope or pulling and twisting new rope, crawling along the securing lines that run all the sails and checking the ropes up there. So he would have to be like half monkey anyway to have been brought on as that position. And also therefore perforce ropes mates tend to be small men.
Do you know where he was seen last? I've got a decent eye. I could see what I could find. I'll admit I don't know ships that well, so may need help understanding what I see.
I believe he was last seen in his hammock. Is that right?
Yes.
Did they say whether he was asleep or whether he was just resting?
It's not clear. His hammock is kind of the last one in the back. And so it's always kind of dim back there in the hold, and there's not a lot of reasons to go back there unless you're getting toward port and you need to start moving, moving equipment and stuff.
Oh, that's actually not a bad idea. I haven't yet actually gone to inspect the hammock myself, but perhaps all of us could go and take a look. And and he blinks for a moment, and then, like as if doing some sort of quick calculation in his head, he remembers something and says, I did ask them to bring all of the guests, and well, I mean, I don't know much, but by the name, I wonder if your companion would be helpful. He says, looking at Wellspring.
There is all chance that she may. She continually surprises me every day that I travel with her. So certainly it is well worth asking.
I don't know why she wouldn't have been brought here. I'll ask a crewmate to go knock on her door. Or I don't know if a crewmate came back or something. Did somebody look for her?
People went and followed your orders and nobody came back to say boo.
Okay.
There's certainly an as yet unnamed cabin boy who is standing outside by the door, making sure nobody comes in. Not that anyone would, but
How old is the cabin boy?
14, and his name is Twice.
I open the door and poke my head out and look for Twice.
He's standing there, and it looks like he had kind of drifted off into daydreams, kind of watching the clouds race overhead. And he looks at you with an incredibly "I didn't do it" expression.
Are you daydreaming again, Twice? Vermilion says.
Yes, Captain. Yes, I am.
I blink. Well, thank you for
His
your
eyes
honesty.
his eyes are possibly larger than half of his face. You don't really know how that's possible, but
Well, stop that. And I have a task for you.
of course, Captain.
Yes. You do know where the guests are quartered, yes?
Yes, Captain.
Do you know the rather elegant realm-looking figure? Do you know who I'm talking about?
He blushes and nods quickly.
Vermilion chuckles. Could you, somebody was supposed to get her, but could you go and tell her we're on our way to the crew's quarters, and that if she would be so inclined, she could meet us there. I would appreciate it.
Of course, Captain.
If
She's just above and behind your cabin. She's standing on the prow.
Oh, well, then if you could relay that message to her, I would appreciate it. And then he kind of holds up a finger as if to tell the child to wait, and then looks back towards Wellspring.
you might mention that there is a mystery to be solved. She is fond of those.
Vermilion just kind of makes a serving gesture towards Twice as if yes, and then nods.
He nods several times and says, "Yes, Captain. Yes, Captain," and then runs off toward the foredeck.
Vermilion sighs and closes the door and looks to the rest. Unless any of you have any other input or anything to share, should we go there now?
Seems the best suggestion. I admit I have no idea how something like this could happen. Your crew is all very, very impressive.
Thank you. They're quite experienced, and also we're all quite close. Most of us have been together for a long time. So you can understand how this is not just an issue of effectiveness, but also for morale.
Well, no point standing here wondering about it. Let's go look.
He nods and opens the door and leads the way towards the crew's quarters.
Lovely. I'm breaking some web pages. You step out of the lightly scented air of the captain's quarters into the bracing face of the ocean's breath. There is an interesting quality to the air that plays at your hair and tugs at your clothing as you walk under the foremast, and it sails, and the elemental wind plays at you for a moment and then lets go. You somehow, perhaps those of you who are more cunning in the ways of the world or the sea could describe it better, but the rest of you just feel the air change as you walk across the deck. It's different, and then it's the ocean again. And as you reach the hatch down into the midships that leads most directly down into the crew quarters and the cargo region of the ship, Lost genially walks up behind you, and she smiles at Wellspring and nods to the group. I understand someone has gone missing.
Indeed. We're hoping we might find him.
Captain.
Thank you for
yeah,
coming.
Of course. I'm sorry I didn't attend the meeting. It wasn't clear to me that it was for me. And well, and perhaps is there a name to this region of the sea?
Do I know that? I assume I do.
You're just kind of out in the Great Western Ocean. You're too far from the neck, even, which is a region of the Western Isles, for anybody particularly to have a claim, and you're well beyond Wujan. And so their name for the ocean that is in some way theirs is long behind you. So you're not aware of anything. This is just the Great Western Ocean.
What's the closest thing to where we're at that would have a name?
That would be the ocean around and below the Coral Archipelago, which is called the Wet Neck.
I say to her, this part of water is not claimed by anybody as far as I know. But we are, and he gives a precise, exact nautical distance from what is called the Wet Neck.
That is remarkably specific.
Oh, he blinks as if he hadn't thought of it that way, but knows that you're right. And simply shrugs his shoulder. It's just the way my mind works, I suppose.
Talent.
Yes, something like that. A gift, I would say.
I believe, Captain, this will not be our only mystery of the day.
Oh,
Yes. Why is that lost?
There is something in these waters that feels like me.
Spirit?
That sounds equally promising and worrying.
Wait, what? Spirit.
It's possible. It's possible that there is an elemental unbodied in the sea nearby. That would explain it, but it's something more, something uncanny, like a name that won't come back to the tip of your tongue. Do you know what I mean? Well, of course you don't. I'm rambling.
Sometimes.
Oh, no, that makes sense.
A manifestation of Presque-vous?
Jude is kind of looking around at everyone else to see if anyone else is like, oh, she's a spirit.
It seems that Vermilion has missed that.
Like, she's like, am I? He's like, am I the only one who? And then shrugs.
What? What do you mean, Jude?
Is it so? Is it rude to ask? You're a spirit?
Oh, did we not mention that?
Don't believe so. Unless I
Vermilion
missed
blinks.
it somehow.
It must have completely slipped my mind. My apologies, though, I suppose. Lost does tend to like an air of mystery about herself.
Well, that's a bit like saying you enjoy an aura of light around yourself. And yes, I am what is sometimes called a small god.
Oh, well. Pleasure to meet you. Well, already met you, but didn't.
Vermilion's mouth is just open
I've met
and no words are coming out.
some interesting things, but I don't think I've actually met a god before.
Oh, I expect you have, and you just didn't realize. We are as unique as the dandelions of the field and as common.
I must
Perhaps
say, it
so
always
then. Come to think of it, Great Forks gets a lot of everything.
Yes.
I must say, it always amuses me when you use that term to refer to yourself, given that you're taller than I am.
Well, we have a lost man to find. My goodness. Shall we organize ourselves into search teams and go deck by deck? She says, as though she was reading in her head from the beginning of some kind of pirate novel.
Well, actually, I think we should probably hold off on that since my crew have already tried, but we were hoping to maybe learn something by more closely inspecting the last place he was seen. And at this point, I think we've been slowly moving in the direction of the back where Bergamot's hammock is. And Vermilion kind of looks around, not really certain what he's looking for, but it's clear which one it was Bergamot's.
So actually, you
Oh,
descend
sorry.
the ladder. You descend the ladder from the main deck, and you bypass the second deck, which is where all of your cabins are. And this, the reason the captain chose this particular hatch and ladder is because it goes all the way to the bottom. And you arrive down below decks. There are, I think, in the interests of safety, 2 more glow globes that are currently spun into their quietest position as the daylight is streaming down and largely illuminating even this sequestered space, if not all of its corners. The glow globes being used rather than fire below decks because, you know, it is a ship and a contained space and, well, kerosene. And you can see that that there is a loading area toward the front of the ship as you turn toward starboard, which is your right, and then as you turn toward port, which is the left side of the ship, and then turn back, you can see what is kind of the crew area, and you can see well over a dozen hammocks that have been slung and carefully stowed up against the walls of the ship and removed from their secure hooks. And clever tables that kind of fold up against the wall have been lowered down so that they have daytime use. And there are a few mates down here. There's a couple that are repairing a plank with with a thick viscous tar that makes the space stink a little bit of tar. And there are several working on mending a small section of sail with silk thread. And other than that, the space is large and unoccupied except for boxes. You move toward the back of the crew space, and there is, in fact, among some sacks of small purple shells that are used for dye in the rest of creation that are harvested from the shores of some of the islands of the West. Amid them, there is still one hammock that is still strung, and it hangs above them. And it's sort of strung not the lengthwise of the ship, but kind of at an angle. So it would probably pitch and yaw more for those of you who have traveled and lain in hammocks than the rest of the cruise hammocks, which are laying across the width of the ship. So it's still out, although it wouldn't particularly be in anyone's way. Although the fastidiousness of the hold suggests that's maybe unusual. So who has a perception plus awareness greater than 5?
I do.
That will be me as well. And I think I have a charm I'd like to activate.
Okay. Well, for those of you that are just naturally imbued with perspicacity, yeah, you can see that there is a small footlocker tucked between a beam and the edge of the ship, near the head of the hammock, which almost certainly is this crewmate's small footlocker. Other than that, the area looks sort of quiet and not like a scuffle has gone on or anything untoward.
Can I think I approached the footlocker and I assume it's locked, right?
It is. Mhm.
Normally
Starfall is standing behind you, sort of head on a tilt, looking back and forth. Doesn't seem like there's a lot out of place. Is that locked?
It is, and normally I would be reluctant to violate the privacy of the men, but since I think he might be in danger, he shrugs and looks like he's about to break the lock but he kind of stops, and then I don't suppose any of you are good with locks.
That would be Dex plus larceny.
Wandering Starfall goes, well, I have some experience, but mostly I have these. And she taps one of the thin strips of red jade that is attached to her arm, like a bracer, although it would offer very little protection as armor. And as she does, a couple of lockpicking tools that seem to be insubstantial, but of very fine quality, sort of pop out at the end. She goes, I could give it a try.
Oh, please do.
Okay. I believe my bracers, Paul, help me remember, are +3 dice to a task like this.
Yes, but since you don't have the larceny skill, you know what? I'm going to let you use your craft finesmithing for this, because it's a very simple mechanical lock.
Awesome.
This does not mean I'm going to allow you to act as a master locksmith in the future.
No, but you're right. She does build locks, so I
Right.
guess it makes sense for the simple ones at least. And I'm looking for my dice, which is not how we do it here. Give me just a second.
So you want
That's-
to slash roll way too many dice. You know what? Actually, you have so many dice. just tell us how the lock opens.
Yeah, that's so many. Wandering Starfall pulls some of the tools that have been offered up by her bracer and sort of sits there, puts the box on her knee, and sticks 2 picks in and just sort of turns the lock and tilts the picks, and the lid springs open. And she goes, "Oh, that was easier than I thought. What do we have here?"
Well done. Vermilion, is the lock broken or is it still reusable?
Oh no.
Yeah.
She just did.
Mhm.
Does anyone in the group have a perception specialty around people
Not currently.
or an awareness or socialize? Okay.
What do you mean by people?
Just a specialty that's for like awareness or socialize that's particularly around like reading people.
Okay, I mean, I have excellencies in both, but no charm other than that.
No, specialty, not excellency.
Right.
You have specialties in those?
No.
No, okay.
No, mine is in reading spirits.
Yeah, mine is not in anything related to awareness or socialize.
You open the small footlocker, and there's some well folded and well stowed clothes on top of them. There's what looks like a small, like a journal, and a small collection of pencils kind of tied in leather that are obviously used maybe for art. And that's all you see in the footlocker.
Is there any examples of art that are in there?
Well, so the pencils are kind of bound up and they're sitting on top of like a small journal.
I pull out the journal and I kind of whines for a moment and seem to make an internal determination and read it, clearly indicating that he's going to read it at first. He looks through the journal.
While he's doing that, Starfall's going to, having pulled out the pencils in the journal, is looking further at the box to see if there are any like hidden compartments for secrets and things.
Oh yes. So again, because this is a very simple thing, you can go ahead and do perception plus craft, which I'm pretty sure means you don't have to roll. You have more than 9 dice.
Let's see. Perception plus craft is 8, but I have an investigation specialty in finding things that have been deliberately concealed.
Oh, lovely. And so with your perception plus investigation, how many dots do you have?
Perception plus investigation would be, I think, 6 total.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and actually that's enough. So 3 dice count as an automatic success in a non-opposed situation. And yeah, this is a crude thing. So there's an obvious false bottom in the footlocker. It's a different kind of wood. It's just kind of pressed into place. It's bulging up a little bit. You can see space beyond it.
She's going to take one of the lockpicks, even though she doesn't need it, and sort of pop it out of the joint and look at what's underneath.
Okay. And there are a couple of cowrie shells which are used as money in the West, and a few tips of jade talents, so a little bit of kind of universal currency. And there's a sort of wax covered, very well loved book with an illustration of a pirate, like a rakish pirate on the front with an epee kind of raised up.
Wellspring smiles.
Do you pull anything out?
Yeah, she'll start pulling things out and sorting through stuff.
Okay.
But I think this is the point where she's starting to go, this is a lot of interesting stuff I found. I don't know what it means. And sort of looks up at Jude and Wellspring and goes, thoughts? Looks like a fun book.
The Wellspring's looking at the journal, but Jude
At the
And Wellspring?
no, just at the cover of
Or-
the pirate book.
sorry, Vermilion's looking at the journal.
Mhm.
So you're checking out the book, Wellspring.
I was mostly just smiling at the cover, though. If it seems we are waiting, he might pick it up and kind of leaf through it. Speed skim of sorts.
Is the book, like the book is in Bergamot didn't, it's not like a journal, it's like a
No,
published work that he
no,
has.
it's like a printed book.
Yeah, and so Vermilion just kind of like makes a note of it, but just kind of nods. So do I see anything in the journal? I'm gonna start with the last entry and kind of thumb my way back.
So Wellspring, you would recognize, it's very likely that the little bits of jade talents, which are the currency of the realm and perforce the periphery, it's very likely he brought those. He had some money and a little bit of money, and he brought those with him, just in case, or just to have some money, or maybe his great grandmother gave him some bits that she'd been saving. And the cowrie shells look like probably they're either like pay that he earned here in the West, or he sold something. He sold something, and these are the results. A little bit of Western money.
And is the book what it appears to be?
Oh yeah, you pull it out. Someone who loved books prepared this thing to live at sea. The cover has been waxed with a preservative wax to protect the book, and even the edges of the binding were of finer, much less penetrative wax. Beeswax was used to preserve the edges of the pages to keep it from taking on water and bending in the sea air. And this thing has been thumbed through, and there are little like pencil notes and little sketches of characters in the margins as you kind of flip through. There's even one drawing of like a young man as a pirate dressed similar to the Pirate King on the cover of the book, and there's like a little flip cartoon of him like haha, like facing some villain in an epee fight.
Oh, poor Bergamot. Question, how long has Bergamot been a member of the crew, as far as I know?
Maybe like 8 months, not very long.
Okay. And thumbing through the journal, it's apparent that Vermilion is not he's looks like disappointed with like with getting anything from it, but he thumbs further back. Do I notice any change in the writing, or does it seem pretty consistent? And does it go back 8 months?
It does. Yeah, it goes back a little bit before, like him making a few notes, getting ready, like, oh, I got the job. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing.
Okay. I close the journal and put it back in the locker. And
Any luck?
I shake my head.
My
Sorry.
none
Captain?
of my
Oh, go ahead. You first.
Yeah, let's have Jude go.
none of my abilities, I think, are. I'm sorry, I don't know much that I can do in this situation. Wellspring, you can see things that aren't normally visible, right? Is there anything?
Oh, yes, I had been waiting to see if there was any more mundane resolution, but I could certainly take a look at the spirit nature of the area, see if there's anything unusual involved. I've been wondering what this looks like, but I think he'll kind of cock his head again as he did before, and there'll be the flash of eyes, but further than that, he'll just sort of keep his eyes closed for a moment. Maybe he's listening to something, or maybe extending some less familiar sense, and then begin looking around the area again. Paul, I wanted to check in terms of description. I think you said before that cult might be used to investigate if something strange is afoot, but it would involve the actual, like, pulling out of some sort of probably little dowsing tool, or saying some words, or drawing some symbols, or is that the sort of thing that we expect a cult to look like in this setting? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, so if you're trying to figure out if there's something sort of beyond the normal senses, like like you were an animal or a mortal, then yeah, you would need to use occult thaumaturgy. So you'd need to, like, basically kind of construct a little impromptu ritual for yourself with devices and words and material components and things.
Oh, so that's doable without spirit detecting glance and stuff.
It is, but it's more along, like, I take an hour and I check this area for
I see.
Yeah, I could also just twig the spirit detecting glance and uncanny perception technique and look around, I think, if I understand my own abilities correctly.
Sure.
So sure, I think, yeah, he'll tilt his head to the side again, eyes reflecting a brief sheen, and then kind of glance around the space, seeming to look for something beyond what others are seeing.
and just well. That gets figured out once Wandering Starfall ascertains that there's nothing to be gained from the chest. She'll very carefully put everything back, put in the false bottom, making sure it fits properly this time. And I think even relocks the chest with her lockpicks and puts it back where it was.
There's a splinter that is broken off of the edge of the little slit that holds the false bottom, and so you remove the splinter and kind of smooth out the edge quickly, and then you're able to properly slot it in and have it actually, it sort of kind of almost locks into place.
Captain, I can't say that I see anything of a spirit or other nature to this area, but one question: does that material not usually smell far more strongly than it seems to right now? And he gestures over to where some men are working with tar within the enclosed space of the
Hold.
Well, does it seem different?
Yeah, they really should be doing that on deck, and it really should reek to Yushan in here, and it doesn't. There's a little bit of an odor of tar, just like more like a little tickling at the back of your throat. And from past experience, you know that your hold is not enchanted against stinking. A couple barrels of things that were not sealed properly halfway across the ocean proved that.
Oh yes, I had memories of, I had lingering physical memories of that for weeks. So you mentioned that they should be doing that on deck. What something's wrong about them doing that down here?
Well, I mean, just for their own. No, I mean, nothing's wrong. But there are scarred work tables down here, and it's probably just easier to work down here. And if they're just doing something quick, and they open portholes and hatches and there's nothing going on, it's fine. But it should really reek down here, and it doesn't.
There's a furrowing of eyebrows. No, that's very observant. And he turns towards the crew members and kind of walks over to them and kind of adopts the stance of somebody of their superior, just sort of checking their work.
But 5 or 6 paces before the rest of you notice that 5 or 6 paces before Vermilion gets to the table, they stop pretending that they don't know he's there, and they all stop and turn and look at him. Like, yes.
Seems a bit odd, didn't it? He says, gesturing towards the tar.
Mixture's good, Captain. It's almost dry. Taps it with his finger. And it doesn't make the kind of gummy connection that it would have earlier.
Shouldn't it smell a lot worse down here?
Well, I don't know, Captain. When was the last time you bathed?
There's a hardness in his the facial expression that implies that this is not the time to joke.
He immediately goes like ash white and sits up straight. Sorry, what was that?
Jude kind of chuckles anyway and then covers it up quickly.
He goes ash white and sits up. Sorry, Captain. What's the question?
We're looking around trying to make sense of what's happened to Bergamot. I'm sure you've heard the rumors.
Yes.
So I'm just looking for anything out of sorts, and I just couldn't help but notice that this should smell a lot worse. And I kind of lean in and kind of take a closer look at the tar. I wonder if I notice anything different about it.
Make a perception plus sale.
Sure.
Or do you have more than 6 dice?
I'm sure I do. Yes, I know I
Okay.
do.
Then you don't need to roll. I mean, that's the ship's tar. Looks like the ship's tar. You smell close at it, smells like the ship's tar.
But it doesn't smell as bad as it should, or?
No, well, I mean, close to it, it smells, it smells like tar.
Hmm.
But like everything down here should smell like tar right now, and it should be thick and intense, and because they heated it up so that it liquefied and applied it, and yeah. So you don't see anything. I mean, it's just the ship's tar. The container doesn't look unusual. The mixture doesn't look unusual. The application doesn't look unusual. Yeah, it should smell more than it does.
As if losing interest in the tar, Vermilion kind of turns away, and I'd like to sniff the air and see if I detect anything else. And I'm actually willing to use an excellency and boost it up.
Okay.
Is that perception plus awareness?
Yeah.
Um,
And as you gather yourself and trundle over to the dice rolling channel and do your roll, I'm gonna just take a quick break because I need to cough a lot and get some water.
oh
So
God, yes, please do.
I'll be right back.
Please do.
Absolutely.
Please do.
Investigations. It's one mote per dice. 2 motes per success. Or not success. Sorry, 2 motes per static number. They dropped the success thing. I'm thinking like evasion, parry, those can be upped with like 2 motes per
Got it.
number. But for dice, it's 1 mote per die.
Okay, so then,
Wait. I think it's 1 per 1. Oh, there you go. Yeah, Jesse corrected it.
that's helpful. I'll wait for Paul to get back before rolling.
Yep. Apparently.
I felt bad because I was like, oh, he's gonna laugh, and then you're like, Glory, get them, and I'm like, oh well, he's still gonna chuckle. Just cover it up and go, oh, just let.
Yeah, that'd get you flogged on a different ship.
I don't know where that has started coming from, but I like the idea of whenever your crew members make jokes, he's kind of amused. Glug,
Oh
glug,
yeah,
glug.
me too. I really enjoy the crew.
I mean, I got the
Yeah.
sense that normally Vermilion would appreciate that joke, but a man is missing, and so it is not the time.
Well, also like on the seas, I mean, I don't know how it maps to Exalted, but like discipline is really important. So you would never make a joke at your superior's expense to the superior's face. It's not like Vermilion has an ego. It's more just like discipline.
Yes, you must command authority.
Mhm.
Don't believe that. He's an evil tyrant. You have to set these people free.
Some of them might have known you since you were knee high. So.
Yeah, that and that person in particular, yes.
Oh, sure.
That always makes it hard to then be like, no, you gotta listen to me now.
Sonny. All right. Are you so you're rolling away?
Yeah, so I
Are
just
you
wanted,
using personal essence? And how much of it? Okay.
I'm going to use 8 motes.
Holy Moses.
Because boy, my nose is gonna probably remember this for weeks, but, that should be, yes, greater than 6. Holy fuck. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 successes.
Something in the hold is changing the air. This air, this particular air, has been in a low, dry place for 1,000 years, with only the memory of bones and dust to fill it. And in your thoughts, you realize that's what's different. The sea air up above is blue. It's wet and full of life and salt, and maybe the distant tang of fish and a little bit of the scent of the deep ocean kelp beds. And the air that was blowing against the sails was green. It has a memory of grass and maybe dandelions. Maybe that's why Lost said that. But this air down here, there is the air of the hold, but it's like it's going away somewhere and being replaced by this air that has been in a dungeon, in a desert place for longer than the age. The air in here is dead.
My eyes are closed as I'm processing that, and my head rotates as if following something, and I'm wondering if I can trace where the air is being replaced from.
It's somewhere further back, back beyond the sacks of little Saggart shells, back beyond some of the old barrels of tar and other goods that are kept to replenish the ship, which is largely what's kept in the rear hold. Back there somewhere, that's where this wind from the dungeon is coming from.
I start moving in that direction.
Wellspring, Lost catches your eye and gives you a well expression. Somewhere along the lines of, he showed you.
He is very impressive.
And her expression softens and she nods. She nods genuinely and interestedly and kind of melts back to get out of the way.
Wandering Starfall hops up and starts to follow the captain as meanders.
Indeed, Wellspring will follow him as well, though giving him a fair degree of personal space.
Same with Jude.
So Jude, you kind of stand aside and you're kind of the last one, and you can hear like a little fierce whispering among the crew back at the tables, and you look back and you see that 2 of them are berating the older sailor who made that joke at the captain's expense, and he's taking his cap off and is sort of wringing it with his tarry fingers.
Oh,
Vermilion, you move backward carefully and with ease among the sacks and barrels. and it's very dark back here as the deck rises up toward the ceiling, and the area narrows, and the light is largely the sunlight is a long echo away, and the nearest glow globe is sort of dim and bouncing around a corner. And so if you were going to hide something, this would be a good place to do it. Do you in some way cause light to happen?
Yes, is the glow globes, I think I can probably pick one up and take it with me, or are they kind of somehow secured?
They're hung securely, but you could grab one and take it with you, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay. You take a few steps back, reach out with casual practice, and do the twist, lift, pull that gets it off the ring, and it's complicated little ring. And then the glow globe is a sort of slightly opalescent sphere about the size of a child's head, and it weighs very little. And there's a seam around the center where the two hemispheres rotate against one another, and that controls the brightness of the glow globe. So you twist it up to maximum brightness, which is like direct full moon, clear sky brightness. So very bright in this small contained space. As you move forward, there are several barrels, like 4 barrels clustered together that you're actually not sure what's in them. This isn't your job. But interestingly, there is a sackcloth tarp that's been hung up on the wall, nailed up on the wall of the ship, on the outer hull wall.
The smell, my trace of the smell leads me to the tarp or behind it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to gingerly lift the tarp.
Okay. So you sort of lift the bottom of it.
Mhm.
Okay. It looks like something in tar has been drawn on the hull.
What has been drawn?
So you kind of lift and pull at the sackcloth, and eventually it kind of pops free, and you realize it wasn't nailed to the hull. It was attached to the hull with like a line of tar or something like tar, and so it kind of pops off and kind of falls to the ground at your feet. And there is a large complex ideogram, like writing in one of the realm languages, about the size of a man there on the deck.
Vermilion reflexively takes a sort of defensive stance in surprise, but then looks over towards Wellspring and Jude.
Wellspring is like from where you are back behind things, mostly only visible as a part of a head peering around a box at this moment. But when you turn to look at him, he says, "That appears to be some sort of writing. Yes, I'd be fascinated to take a look."
Vermilion nods, and there's something different in his demeanor. Since you boarded the ship, he's been, pretty easygoing and even a little awkward, but he's clearly adopted a more a defensive kind of threatened posture.
If the space is made, Wellspring will move forward to get a better look at the ideogram, though glancing briefly back at Jude, who was also addressed, to see if he has anything to add.
Jude will come forward as well, and that
does not look good. I'm kind of, I don't know. Can you read that? I would be surprised if I can.
Oh, is Jude? I thought Jude was a linguist, but Vermilion probably doesn't know the difference.
Jude is not a linguist. He
Okay.
just knows magic.
No, that is me. I am the linguist.
Well,
I
you
am-
were the first person. Yeah.
You're the linguist. I know magic, so I don't need to know language to go. Shoot.
So I think Wellspring will take the glow globe and hold it to best light the symbol and study it. Curious, reflecting finger or hand on his chin, finger tapping briefly as he looks up to the side, thoughtfully pondering.
And I will say that while he can't read, if it is Old Realm, he can at least recognize when he sees it at this point.
Yeah, you would recognize that it's the complex interrelated ideograms that characterize the Old Realm or maybe High Realm. You're not the details of it aren't clear to you because you don't have the language.
Not yet.
I-
Starfall does have the language and is trying to read what the thing says.
Vermilion beckons once he immediately when he sees that you seem to have some sort of familiarity with it, he beckons. And then he places his hand on the nearest, I don't know, on the nearest kind of wooden bar, and closes his eyes. And if anybody is reading Essence or can see Essence, there's clearly some sort of transfer from the ship to him.
That would be lost.
Mhm.
She doesn't just have the hips of a god. She's got the calves of the eyes. That's what I meant.
I was looking at her eyes. Yes.
Yes.
Starfall goes,
I think Wellspring may catch out of the corner of his eye Starfall staring and cocks an eyebrow curiously and says, "Can you read this too?"
what? Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Come look. I mean,
It's
it looks honestly more like art than language in the way that it's being constructed here and here. Almost certainly a sorceress working
it
of some kind.
definitely is a sorceress working.
I have read
That's,
about those.
and then
I've seen the
that-
results of a few.
Jude starts muttering under his breath in river speak. Kind of. And that connects to that.
You know what it does? I understand bits and pieces, but
Don't know the language, but I know sorcerer's workings.
Well, this symbol here means something like obfuscation. Here is best would be cultural reference, donjon of sorts. Here is silence. Yes, wouldn't you say?
yeah.
And
But like, what does it do though?
well, I mean, if we look at what it says, that might convey what it does. Turning of the eye and the breath and the mind. I mean, my guess would be some sort of diversion, lack of notice, maybe I don't know about this donjon reference specifically, unless I do. I'll ponder that for a minute.
Wandering Starfall sort of rocks back on our heels and slips a hand into her pocket, or a pocket that's concealed under her buff jacket, and starts fiddling with something. And those around her wouldn't know it, but what she has in her pocket is a lore stone that remembers some places from long, long ago. And she's looking for references to a dungeon.
So too is Wellspring, but within his own brain. As a specialist in world history.
Yeah, well, I think we'll have for this one time because of that, because of
that
the
didn't work.
stone,
Definitely.
we'll have Wandering Starfall do an intelligence plus occult with the lore stone as a bonus. All right, so that looks like 3 successes on a lot of dice. Yes, Rana?
Four successes.
No, because she's got a difficulty penalty.
Oh.
Yeah, if you note the greater than.
Yeah. And let's see. I was rolling 2, right?
Are we all rolling? I assumed you were rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have Wandering Starfall roll next.
Occult. +2 for the lore stone, +5 intelligence. I got a 4.
Lovely. Obviously, there's a lot of clandestine typing happening.
Yes. When there's a break in what everybody's doing, let me know, because I have things to do.
Hey, go ahead. I think people are just kind of
Jude
watching.
turns in the direction of the crew and says, "All mortals out now." Turns back. There's a demon here.
They all stand up and look at you, Vermilion.
Do it.
They go really fast.
That's a hiding spell.
So
Hiding
you're
demon.
standing close to a dark ideogram wellspring. as one of your companions in a commanding and somewhat alarmed voice announces that having looked at the same ideogram from behind you, that there is a demon and mortals out now. What do you do?
Well, initially, my first intuition is to make sure that I have finished reading the thing before anything else.
There's a demon here, but man, sorcery is weird. That does not quite mean what it says, does it?
This
Uh,
would
I-
explain. Normally, I have something of an intuition for when spirits are around, and though not my favorite variety, demons qualify.
At the mention of the word demon, Vermilion strings his bow in one swift, delicate motion.
Starfall is backing up slightly, but not so far that she can't keep reading the sign and go. So magic.
To obfuscate smell especially. Something's invisible back there, I think. Maybe not. It's hard to
Oh.
tell exactly.
Well, Jude, you are familiar with working sorceries, I believe it was said.
Yeah.
Would you perhaps find it prudent at this point to disrupt this one?
Do we have time for that?
With a loud grinding sound, Lost bends, kind of curtsies casually at the waist, and lays her fingers over the kind of inner edge of the top of a crate, one at the bottom of each of two stacks of crates, and without any visible sign of effort, she just walks backward, dragging the massive crates with her, to create a large open space. Yeah.
Maybe it normally this sort of thing takes a while, but I'll do what I can.
Vermilion goes towards Lost and tries to help.
And Jude kind of all his muscles tense for a moment and relax, and he kind of, I don't know. I assume this takes a kind of a bit of a ritual going on to kind of get rid of it. I've not done sorcery before in a game.
So you would need to perform a counter magic, or you would need to lay a working on top of it that ran in the other direction.
All right.
So that revealed
I think
things
these
rather
days
than
it's like
concealing them.
distortion instead of counter magic, because counter magic is while it's cast. I don't know.
Oh, right. Yes.
I actually think it might be the other way around. I think you can only distort it while it's being cast.
No. Distortion after cast.
Starfall goes, I hate to ask inconvenient questions, but that must be where Bergamot has gone, right? Do we have time to stand around dispelling magic if one of your crewmates might be in there with a demon?
So you're saying in there, but the thing you're pointing at is a calligraphy on the wall. And
Yes.
and as you address the captain, what happens in the background is that he leans a shoulder onto a middle box and begins sort of roaring, and Lost is watching you, Vermilion, but she doesn't quite time it right, and she stops pulling with her fingertips a moment before you stop pushing, and the crates just stop moving.
Vermilion, his feet do that thing in his shipboard boots that where they kind of just scrape against the ground and slide and slide and slide as if he's moving but not going anywhere. And then he stops, looks at Lost and turns very red and then turns around to not look at her and then looks towards Starfall and as she asks him that question, he looks at the hull of the ship as if like she's telling him that his crewmate is in an inanimate object, and it's clear that he doesn't seem to understand. When you say in there, I'm sorry, what?
I mean, it's hiding something, right? There must be more than we can see. And she's going to reach out and touch the glyph.
Just a moment.
Mhm.
So Jude looks like either he's pulled a couple of muscles or there are ants in his pants because he's sort of kind of breathing and shifting and kind of slowly rotating joints and kind of sort of glaring at the wall. Yeah, and so your hand, Wandering Starfall, passes right through the ideogram without resistance.
And she just sort of holds it there and goes, see?
It's hot on the other side.
She pulls it back through and sort of shakes her hand and goes, not comfortable, but there's more going on there.
By the sun.
A barrel about a pace and a half from you, one to your left, now that you're facing back toward the party. Wandering Starfall kind of shifts and then falls over onto its side. And the barrel quite suddenly splinters and just sort of kind of pushes itself apart into 100 small pieces, but more in like a flumphing apart rather than an exploding way. So you don't feel compelled to like throw up your hand to protect your eyes or anything. And there's a dark, glistening mass inside of it that begins flowing free and away from you toward the ideogram.
Does it look like it's a creature?
It could be maybe like a jellyfish full of squid ink, or like there are some kind of protoplasmy sea creatures. It's something like that. It's wet and dark and like a little bit see-through. And it's kind of
I try to impale it to the floor with an arrow.
okay. As an arrow springs from your quiver and you draw it to the string, a voice resonates out of the mass and says, "Wait." Do you?
Yeah.
Did we all hear the voice?
Yeah. And sorry, Rana, what was that roll for?
Sorcerer's motes. Just
Oh.
kind of gathering them.
Great, thank you.
Starfall showing her usual sense of self-preservation. Crouches
Most
down
some-
next.
Sorry, go ahead.
Crouches down next to the thing and goes, "What is this? What are you? Sorry, what are you?"
Motes of dust sort of spinning in the cabin air around Jude are beginning to flare briefly with sunlight and stop. Much like there are hot beams of sunlight falling past her, and then motes are just passing through it. Only there is no such beam. There are no such beams.
His breath sounds almost heavy as well. Like you can hear it much more loudly than you normally can.
This one did not mean. This one did not mean to offend the lawgivers. The sludge says as it kind of rises up, and it sort of turns partly toward you, and as it does, it sort of reassembles itself into something like your shape, Starfall, including like a weird sort of perfectly still mockery of your hair, and sort of the set of your shoulders and the width of your stance. But it continues to be semi-transparent sludge.
Starfall backs up. And her hand is in her other pocket.
If
Oh
that
my.
is true and you did not intend either offense or harm, you would agree to quick glance at Vermilion, parley with us, and explain yourself and your presence on this ship?
Vermilion nods almost very faintly perceptibly. And it's clear that even though he hasn't fired the arrow, that the arrow is still knocked and pointed at the thing.
One was sent here to the sea. Oh, one had a mission. One found your ship and followed one's commands.
And what were those commands?
To find any vessels in this region of the sea and determine whether they belonged to the hateful realm. And to gather information and other things if it were a ship of the hateful realm.
And your actions thus far have been because you determined us to belong to the hateful realm?
It does a bad imitation of wandering Starfall, turning her head from side to side to look around the ship. This ship is confusing, but there were some hateful things in this part of the ship that one took for one's own.
Well, I do believe you have offended many of us in doing so, as those things were under our protection.
Indeed.
If you wish to remedy said offense, you would be able to return those to us post haste, yes?
Yes, with one exception.
Yes, and that would be?
The fragile mortal did not survive.
I see.
So I ate him.
Ah,
From somewhere in the back of the party, you heard Lost go,
well, that is problematic.
I don't understand. This ship has been a thorn in the realm's side. What do you even mean?
I'd call that more than problematic.
Vermilion looks at Jude and looks a little uncomfortable, but then looks back towards the thing taking Starfall's form.
Jude's skin is darkening not only from constriction of blood flow, but turning a dark bronze color that is edging toward the supernatural.
It's always a little bronze, but now it's suddenly unusually so.
Spirit, as I see it, you have trespassed where you do not belong and gravely offended the master of this ship, and I would
The creature utters a pretty profane curse in Old Realm.
in an expression of I don't care, or in an expression of, well, darn, I did not mean to do that.
More like my fucking testicle babies are cooked now.
Yes.
Why did you take one of my crew?
I did not intend to, but it found this one before the dungeon was complete. It was unreasonably alarmed. It says, spreading fingers like, see how reasonable I am with my creepy goopy body.
Master's orders first. Dungeon complete second.
Yes. What exactly were your orders from your master? Oh, and who are they?
It's muttering to itself in Old Realm now. And it's like watching somebody mutter their way through an overly complex contract to buy a house. So stipulation was, but clearly, nah. And then it raises one finger. Yes, my master's name is not to pass my lips, but of the Lintha they are, and familiar with us. And by us, it sort of like gestures to itself like it means it's family or it's race or something. And orders given me to come to this part of the sea and find any ships and come aboard and discover whether they belonged to the hateful realm, and if they were, to sow dissent and deceit and attempt to sink the ship. You are my second vessel, and as you can see, I did not sink the ship. It leans forward like it's expecting a reward of some kind.
No, you did not, though you acted with intention to. Yes?
No, I followed my commands. I did what I was commanded and a little bit for myself as well. And it gestures toward the ideogram of the donjon on the wall.
And this donjon, what exactly is this? As my companion here has asked.
What do you mean by it's not finished?
That too.
The dungeon is my home.
I didn't think things.
Involuntarily, Vermilion, smelling what you smelled and knowing what you know, you shudder.
Oh, that can't be good.
Is Bergamot is the mortal you stole in there?
It shakes. Its face assumes. What's your expression right now, Starfall?
Starfall has a look of intense confusion on her face because she did not get the impression that anything should be in the dungeon. And anything that might be is not good news.
So
But there is a little bit of a light of curiosity behind it, but right now it's confusion and revulsion.
the thing looks at Starfall, and its glistening dark features become her kind of confused expression, and it looks back at you hopefully. One does not wish to offend, it says, making like a sweeping away gesture to the question.
But you ate all of him?
There's a and it with its other hand that isn't wiping away, it sort of looks down, and it plunges its hand into its own chest and pulls out a femur.
Oh God.
It's very clean, that femur. Very clean.
Vermilion, there's a moment, there's a quick passing moment of disgust, but he subdues it, and holding the arrow and the bow with one hand, it's now not knocked, but he's holding them both. He reaches out in hand. Give it to me.
Very gingerly, it extends the length of the femur out, so that the bottom protrusions of bone, which are still round and unmarked by any damage, extend toward you.
I take it, and I'm assuming here, but I think I'm discomfited by how clean and how not gross it is. Yeah. And I put it away.
And disturbingly, it's smooth and dry and clean.
Yeah. You have
Your
not only,
orders. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
you have not only trespassed, but you have stolen something that cannot be returned or made right. I know that you are bound not to reveal the name of your master, but I have heard tales. I know that your kind can be crafty, and I know there's probably a way for you to communicate what we desire, perhaps without breaking the letter of your oath. And you will give it to us. And I think at that, the cast mark begins to burn. And I'll just spend a mote of peripheral essence. And if I need to roll an intimidation check, I will roll many dice.
Are you doing a charm of some kind?
No, well, and I would spend an excellency, but this isn't an argument, but yeah.
I mean, you've been talking long enough and he's being kind of dodgy. It could be considered an argument if you want it to.
Oh, sure.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. In that case,
He's arguing like a coward argues,
right, sure.
or it is arguing like a coward argues.
In that case, I would probably. Do, 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 do. One. Wait, two, oh, +3, how does, sorry, I'm trying to read how my things work.
Mhm.
This reference function holds. Okay, so, and in this version of Exalted, I can do multiple charms as long
Yeah.
as, cool, all right, so I think I'm
As long
gonna,
as one of them doesn't forbid it.
yes, okay,
Yeah.
I will do impassioned discourse technique. Well,
Mhm.
first of all, I'm assuming I'm rolling, what, charisma plus presence, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so impassioned discourse technique, one automatic success. I'm arguing,
Okay.
if the solo is arguing from principle, they hold, gain 2 or 3 or 4 bonus dice based on the intensity of the principle. In this case, I assume the principle can be like an intimacy.
Yeah.
My defining intimacy, defining intimacy of the familial loyalty of the crew of the Windthrift.
Oh yeah.
So I think that would give me 4 bonus dice. In essence, his charm persuades the character to act as the solo would act, which is what I'm asking him to do. And I would also do harmonious presence meditation, +3 bonus dice to all social influence from any ability except stealth. All social influence charms are reduced by 1 mote to 1 minimum. So I guess I would do that first. So that would reduce impassioned discourse cost. So that's 5 motes plus 2 motes, and then an excellency. Let's see how many dice. I'm probably rolling 14 plus 1 success. Actually, I don't even need the excellency. I think 14 plus 1 success plus 3 dice. That's 17 dice with 1 automatic success. Do you want me to roll?
I do.
Okay,
Actually, you can't botch because of the automatic success. So,
uh-huh.
I mean, you can roll if you want to have fun, but I'm
Sure.
fine to
I wanna see what
just
happens.
accept that as 6 total successes.
Yeah, totally. And I'm spending these motes from my peripheral essence. Yeah.
Great.
All right, 17 D10 plus 1 additional success. Oh, I
Cool.
should have done the greater than, but it's 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4. Oh, not as many as I hoped, but 4 successes plus 1,
Okay.
5 successes total.
Okay. The aspic jelly of the creature's nature vibrates by the end of his speech in accordance with the rising and falling intonations of Vermilion's speaking. And as the light of his cast mark burns into life, it seems to its outer circle seems to surround the thing, as though a circle of light has been drawn in the air about the creature, and it kind of quivers and quavers, and it loses its semblance to wandering Starfall's form, probably much to her gratefulness, and it assumes a sort of vaguely pillar-like blob shape that separates at the bottom into 2 pseudopod-like feet. Yes, yes, yes. And like its head keeps shrinking down into its body and then sort of reforming from the sides. And then the new kind of head-like thing shrinks down in the body and reforms. And so there's this weird circulating thing where the area that you would call a head keeps like shrinking into its body, like it's trying to get away from you, and then reflexively reforming. And in the midst of that, yes, the one who called me forth is the captain of the Black Kelp Sea of the 5th Lintha Fleet. That one's name cannot by laws that are the origin of your power pass my lips. It says, seemingly oblivious that it doesn't have lips.
I didn't quite understand the last sentence. What about the origin of my power?
That person's name, and you note he also is avoiding specifying a gender.
Mhm.
That one's name cannot pass his lips by basically by dint of the very origins of your power.
Oh. Oh God. I mean,
And
is he
you don't
talking?
really know what that means, but
Okay, I can guess.
Jude presumably knows this is true and goes, yeah, that's not uncommon.
Do I know who the captain of the Black Kelp Sea is? The fifth Lintha fleet?
you don't. You don't have truck with the Lintha. The Lintha are bad. Bad.
What do I know about who the Lintha are?
They live in the islands west and south of Honteng, and they have like this giant horrifying sculpture island that they live inside of, and it's said that they don't just summon demons, that they bind them and worship them and marry them.
What the fuck? Oh shit.
Yep. Also, they are supposed to have a presence in Wujan, so yeah.
Vermilion's face turns a little pale.
Yes, one understands now. Yes. Although you're not sure you're reacting to what it is talking about. One did not wish to offend the lawgivers. And it's directionality, although it's kind of focused now on you. Vermilion keeps looking over at it. It obviously keeps like sort of turning to look at you, Jude.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With something like a little bit of terror. If you are correctly reading aspic. By the way, aspic is boiled down animal fat made into a jelly.
Nice.
This one will fetch your goods and return them. And it kind of starts oozing toward the ideogram.
Do so.
Vermilion nods.
Yes. It vanishes without affecting the ideogram or the wall through it. And a moment later, there's a blast of hot air through the ideogram, and then the ideogram like rolls up on itself like it was a living thing, like it was something made of way too many black tentacles. It sort of rolls up on itself and kind of down into a little black point, and there's as it disappears.
Oh, that fucker.
And it does smell like tar down here.
Uh-huh.
Boy, does it smell like tar. But it smells like something so very much worse. And I think we will stop there for the evening with my apologies.
No need to apologize. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. Not that you couldn't have fought it, because you certainly could have.
Oh, we could have. It knew that.
Well, it did answer our questions for the most part.
Yeah, certainly gave us enough leads to go chasing if we want to.
A little bit of praise for your companions.
I mean, this is awesome.
I love how Starfall and and Wellspring both like Jude's like, there's demon, mortals get out of here, and Wellspring's like, but I want to keep reading. And then Starfall, while we're talking, let me just poke the thing.
It seemed the most expeditious way to get the answers we were after.
Well,
Totally.
And then Jude had to go,
No.
well, I've already got these boats. I might as well do something with them.
This knowledge is power. So, I mean, you said there's a demon. Might as well keep reading and learn as much as possible. Yes? No?
Knowledge is power.
It was commented on earlier. I loved Vermilion's straightness with his crew and the kind of need for the disciplinarian persona that he has clearly learned to project as the captain of this crew, that at the same time seems not a truly natural part of his personality.
Yes.
That was great. Both the ridiculous sensory and presence roles, and the acting around them, not just I rolled a lot of dice, but the choice to do those things at those moments were fabulous.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how everybody contributed to a part of the puzzle. Like Wellspring gave Vermilion the clue of like, hey, the smell is something about that. And then Vermilion kind of following up on that. I loved how Wellspring and Starfall are both very curious people, but play that very differently. And I'm enjoying Wellspring's like Wellspring is kind of like courteous, but you can always tell that there's sort of a scraping behind the like, I want to do the thing, but I know I have to say the right things before you let me do the thing. And I like that. And Starfall is more like, I'm gonna go do the thing. And so I'm just enjoying that kind of contrast between the two of you. And I love Jude's kind of like internal dialogue with themselves as he's always kind of like it's like he's like trying to learn things and then process it, but there's some of it that's kind of out loud, and so you just kind of get glimpses of what's going on, and so like that's always fun to me too. So
Yay.
it's really cool how everybody's like very intelligent, except for Vermilion. Everybody's really intelligent, but they're all processing in very different ways. I love it.
Honestly, I like the contrast of having like all these really high intelligent characters and then Vermilion. It makes for a fun contrast. And frankly, Vermilion has like tons of charisma, probably more than anyone else. So it kind of makes a nice contrast.
I like the moment Starfall was like, shouldn't we just go inside? And then Vermilion's like, into the hull of the ship.
Yeah, I
her mind wanders a little bit, but I think I'm having so much fun playing this character. And I loved how you went instantly into teacher mode when you realized that Starfall would understand what you were talking about with the glyph, just going, yes, you could see it too. In that case, let's study it together. And I was like,
yeah, I mean,
perfect.
You could call it teacher mode, or you could honestly call it like fellow scholar mode, even though you would not think of yourself in that way. It's just you'll understand this too. So this is this, yes. And then if we this, it's always easier to talk it through with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Was a lot of fun.
I also really loved the there was a series of things that flowed so naturally the way my intuition wanted them to go, which was Jude demanding the crew move, and then Paul's response of they look to Vermilion, which made me just sit here going, yes, as they would. And then like John's like instantaneous response to that of do what she says. Like just that to that to that was so good.
Mm. It's like you're a circle. Mm.
Right.
Yummy. Wow. And I loved, I'll say also that I loved Jude being like, oh, I don't know, this isn't really my thing.
That- yeah.
Tee-hee.
Yay.
Yay. Well, thank you all for another excellent session. And
Your crew members are fun, Paul.
oh, good.
And maybe this week we do a better job of, I suggested last week we should put in the Slack channel the possible exciting moments of specifically relating to the solar XP system.
Oh, yes.
Things
Yeah.
worth calling out.
Yeah.
Perhaps for both sessions, because we got a lot of cool stuff the previous one that
We
I
do.
think we all forgot to go around. And they're
Part
worth
of it is
getting a
without
record of.
knowing each other's intimacies, we're kind of just guessing. But I do have some guesses.
Well, that's why what my suggestion was people just write down the thing they thought was cool about a given character, and that person can then go, yeah, that was actually related to one of my intimacies, and the fact that those two things connect then mean it relates.
All right, so I
Okay.
need to write about Vermilion being a Disney princess. Okay.
I
want
Oh, yeah.
adventure in the great
Plus-
wide somewhere.
Plus, then it can tell us, like, I think I'm still trying to formulate exactly what all the intimacies are. So of course I'm playing the ones I have, but if people go, oh, this was clearly an intimacy, and I'm like, you're right, clearly it should be, that would be helpful for me. So
Yeah. So if you have something at the tips of your fingers or on the edges of your brain, go ahead and pour those into the story channel.
Awesome.
That would be a good place for them.
Coolness.
Great. Well, thank you all again for an amazing session, and I will see you hopefully fully restored and for more of a full session next week.
Yay.
Yay.
Mhm.
See you all.